In this lesson, we'll learn about the area in which we will work to create our own shading networks here inside of Maya. Okay, I've got an empty scene open here, and I just want to go ahead and show you kind of the place where more than likely you're going to be building most of your shading networks. There's a few different ways to access it. It's called the Hypershade. So let me just come up here first to the window menu. And if I scroll down here underneath Rendering Editors, you'll find a link for the Hypershade, just like so. Now, when I open this up, you'll see here that this separate window opens up, and this is basically our Hypershade. Now, this is one way to access the Hypershade, but oftentimes what I'll do is I will actually access it in sort of a split view with maybe my perspective view, something like that. And the way I'll do that is I'll come over here to my quick layout buttons, and if you don't have a quick layout button for the perspective and the Hypershade, you can come over here and reassign one of these buttons just simply by right-clicking on it. And we'll come down here to Hypershade/Perspective. Once I select that one, you'll see here that I've actually had one right here created for that. But you can see here that now I've opened up the Hypershade and the perspective and sort of split my view here between the two. Now, the beautiful thing about this is we can hit our space bar and we can cycle now between the two, just simply based on the position of our cursor. All right, great. Let me just come back over here to Window and Rendering Editors, and let's open the Hypershade back up here. And let's come over here and just kind of expand this out a little bit. Now, there's kind of a lot going on here, but don't feel too overwhelmed. We're going to kind of talk about most of these areas here. So the first thing I want to point out to you is the Create bar, and that's kind of this area right over here. You can see there's actually two tabs here. We'll actually talk about bins in a little bit, but the Create bar is where you'll see a listing of each and every node that Maya has available. And you can see there are quite a lot of them. Now, I'm referring to these as nodes because these aren't all just materials, and these aren't all just textures. There's quite a number of different nodes and different node types that exist within Maya. And you can see here that I have this list on the left, and what I can do is I can begin to sort of filter this list down based on maybe what my selection. Maybe I want to look at just the Maya surface materials. Well, I can go ahead and click on that, and you can see this list over to the right gets filtered by that. I can come over here and I can begin to increase the size of them or decrease that with this slider above. But basically all I'm looking at here are Maya surface materials. Now, if you don't have this mental ray portion right down here, don't feel alarmed. You may not have the mental ray plugin loaded, but that's okay. This is really something different. And this course will just be pretty much working above here with the Maya nodes. So with that said, you can see here that the surface materials are all listed here. But if we wanted maybe some kind of a texture, we could come down here and grab maybe that, I don't know, that grid texture that we saw in the last lesson right here. Or maybe that bulge texture that we saw as well. So you can see that there are even different types of textures, both 2D and 3D here. Now, let's go ahead and look at those surface materials again, and let's just come in here and click on one of these guys, maybe a blend right here. Now, when I click on that, you'll notice that a couple of things happened. That blend appeared right over here in my work area, but it also appeared up here in the top. So I wanted to point out to you that this is the exact same material right here as right here. So as you're building your shading networks, you'll be doing that prominently down here in the work area. But it's important to note that this area at the top here is an area that basically will show you all of the different nodes or assets that exist inside your current scene. So now you can see before I drop this blend in, this brand new scene already had 3 basic nodes in here. There was this Lambert 1, this particle cloud, and this shader glow one. So these are going to be created with any new Maya scene. So, but we do have our blend 1 right over here. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to come over here and drop in, let's go ahead and drop in a Fong as well. I'll just go ahead and click there, and you'll see that that also appears in both places. So as I mentioned before, basically what we have down here is the work area. This is where we're going to be building our shading networks. Now, oftentimes as you're working and building shading networks, this work area down here can get very, very cluttered. So what you'll probably end up needing to do is be able to clear this work area off. We can do that with this button right over here. It looks like a little eraser, and if I click that, you can see my work area gets cleared. Now, let's talk about these materials right up here and kind of how this works. Now, the way I kind of view this area up here is kind of like a library or a bookshelf in a library. In a library, we have lots and lots of books, and if we want to read one of the books, we need to take it off the shelf. So this would be a shelf with lots of books on it, and if we wanted to work with this blend 1, all we need to do is middle click and drag that guy right down here into the work area. And now we can begin to work with that, begin creating our shading network, whatever the case may be. Now, if we want to put this book back up here into the shelf or into our materials, we do not want to hit our delete key on our keyboard because that will actually delete it from both places. Again, if we want to remove this from the work area and thus put it back on the shelf, all we need to do is hit this button right here. And again, that will clear off our work area. Now, just like a library has lots and lots of shelves with lots and lots of books, this particular library has multiple shelves and multiple books as well. So you can see right now the shelf we're on, or the tab we're on rather, is the Materials tab. So what we're looking at are all the materials in our scene. Now, if we came over here and clicked on a 2D texture, maybe that grid texture, you can see it gets dropped in right over here in my work area, but it does not appear in the Materials tab. It's because this is a texture. So this texture will show up if we come over here to our Textures tab. And again, we have more tabs beyond that. We have our Utilities tab. You can see the Place 2D node that we saw in the previous lesson that was attached to this grid is actually automatically created, and it lives on the Utilities tab or shelf. So this is kind of how the different nodes that you're working with in your shading networks get split up here inside of the Hypershade. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you about is sort of navigating this work area right down here. Now, navigating the work area is very, very similar to navigating just in the viewport inside of Maya. Basically, the way this works is we can hold down our Alt key and we can middle click to pan around. And you can see here I just panned to reveal this Place 2D texture node that was kind of off the screen. Now, if we wanted to zoom in and out, we could do that a couple of ways. We could hold down that Alt key and right click and drag, and you can see we can begin to zoom in and out on the work area. Or we can, again, use our scroll wheel on our mouse, and we can, again, zoom in and out on the work area. So, again, navigating here inside of the Hypershade, very, very similar to the way we navigate inside of our viewport. All right, fantastic. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next lesson, and we'll learn a little bit about viewing and arranging our Hypershade nodes.